This is a lesson that goes along with lesson 2 of chapter 1 in the Glencoe math book for Math 8, which is course 3. So I'm just going to go through and teach this lesson as if there were students here. So this says, scan the lesson and write the definitions of power, base, and exponent. For a student, this would mean that we would go through and write power, base, and exponent. And we're going to put definitions for each one of those. If you need to pause the video to write those down, please feel free to do so. So if we look on the next page, on page 16, you'll notice that these words, power, base, and exponent, are all highlighted, and they are dark, like they're highlighted and they're in bold. So we can get the definitions from here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to underline the definition. For power, we have it's a product of repeated factors. The base is the common factor, and the exponent tells us it's the number of times a base is used as a factor. So we're going to go back to the other page. So power is a product of repeated factors. So write that on this page.
So a product of repeated factors. The base is the common factor. And the exponent is the number of times a factor or factor is repeated. Oops. So then we read this real world thing. So Yogi decided to start saving money by putting a penny in his piggy bank, then doubling. So doubling, what does doubling mean? It means timesing it by 2, the amount he saves each week. Use the questions below to find out how much money Yogi will save in 8 weeks. So let's see. Yeah, this week doubled is 2 cents. Doubled. So I want you to fill in this table. Pause the video so you can come back to it. You may have noticed that once you double everything that you can just put them right back on right there. So you can put them up there. So 2 times by 2. So notice we times by 2. And then we times this by 2 and times this by 2. And then we would times this by 2 and times this by 2 and times this by 2. So that's the total, that's the amount that he would earn each day. He would save each day. And now we want to know how much he's saving altogether. So if he already had 3 cents and he got 4 cents more, how much would he have now? See, 3 plus 4 is 7, so it's 7 cents. And then 7 cents plus 8 cents is 15 cents. Now watch this. What's the difference between 3 and 4, or 7 and 8, and 15 and 16? What do you notice? Do you notice that it's 1 less? So you could just do 31 cents. 1 less than 64 is 63 cents. And we don't have the next one. In fact, for the sake of these, we're going to come down here and we're just going to finish filling this out. So let's see, 64 times by 2, 4 cents, times by 2 is $1.28. So make sure to make it a dollar sign this time, $1.28. And then that times by 2 is $2.56.
And then that one, the next one is $5.12. And keep on filling that in.
That with these numbers. What? Okay, so if this is let's see, if that's 128, that means that this one up here would be $1.27. And then this would be $2.55. And this one would be $5.11. This would be $10.23. This would be $20.47. This would be $40.96. 95 cents. So then if we add $40.96 plus $40.95, so we're adding those two for the final one, we should get $81.91. So going back up here, once you're right, you can pause the video. You don't have to come with me. You can pause it and come back. So first question, number 2. So how many 2's are multiplied to find his savings in week 4? So we had this 2 and that 2. So 1, 2, this one 3, this one gave us the 4. So we had 4. And how many were there in week 5? Well, we just times it by 1 more 2, so that's 5. And if we wanted to do week 8, we could come down to the table. Let's just do down to the table. He will save $2.56. And then when will he have enough money to buy a pair of shoes for $80? So right here he had $81.91, but on day 11 he didn't. So we are going, this week he did not. So it would have to be after week 12, he would have enough saved up for his $80 shoes. Okay, turning the page. So we've already talked about the power, the base, and the exponent. This is the main thing from this lesson that I would get. It's just the ways to say these. If you say your powers and exponents like this, you'll sound like a pro. So 3 to the 1 is 3 to the first power. This can be said 3 squared or 3 to the second power. Do you see those? This is 3 to the third power or 3 cubed. Or you can even say 3 to the third. This is 3 to the fourth power or 3 to the fourth, and we can keep on going. And then this n stands for any number. You could just say 3 to the whatever that number is power, or 3 to the whatever that number is. So like 3 to the 11th power or 3 to the 11th. And then there would be that number of factors, 11 factors on that one. So this is how you do it. In fact, let me show you something that will really make you sound like a pro. When you get your calculator, this button right here, notice that there's a squared on it. So oftentimes students will say x2, but what that really means is x squared. If I were you, I would at least try practicing saying x squared so that you sound like a pro. Okay, now these, example 1 and 2 for the homework. These are the ones that that you need to do. And all you have to do is write them. You don't have to solve them. You don't have to use your calculator. All we are really doing is solving them. So with that, there are some important things that you need to add into your notes. And that is, and so I want you to write it out here. So if there are negatives or fractions, always use parentheses. So right here, we already have parentheses, and this is negative 2 times itself 1, 2, 3 times. So our final answer would have a negative 2 3 times, and then the 3 happens 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So times by, or you can do the timesing like this, 3, 4 times, and that's all you have to do. The next group, sometimes they'll just have letters, which again goes to why we can't use our calculators. We have 2 a's, so I do a squared. And then we have 1, 2, 3 b's, so b cubed. And then that's it. You can also change that to just a normal time sign like that. So I want you to practice these out. You can check them when you come back to class. Or actually, you can check them in just a minute. So pause the video, please, and then come back and check. This one, when you do it, since it's a fraction and we wrote there that we're supposed to have a fraction, we're going to put this in parentheses. And there were 4 of them, so we just put 4. Notice we didn't have to put it in your calculator or anything. There are 3 4s here, so we do 4 to the third times by, or the times like this, times by 5 squared. And that's it. And then this one, there are 3 m's, so m to the third times by n squared. The pro tip that I have for you on this is if there are ever letters like this, or like this one up here, when you're writing your answer, put it in alphabetical order. The next part, these look crazy, and I'm going to show you, like you can follow this, but this is what I would type into your calculator. Again, we're focusing on what we do and what we learn, not on calculating as much. So we are going to go like this. This is what I would type into my calculator. I would put 1 parentheses, and then negative, a negative, and make sure you use a negative on your calculator. Negatives are down at the bottom sometimes, and they're different places on other calculators. Make sure you know where your negative button is. So 2, and then divided by, because our fraction bar is a dividing sign, 3, close the parentheses, and then caret. So to do an exponent, find this button right here. So this is the button that says to the power of. On some calculators, you will find the button. It's an X with a box like that. And on some calculators, it'll be Y to the X. So look for the one that does exponents on your calculator. On mine, it's a caret. And then a 4. So if I type that into my calculator, I would get negative 2, parentheses, negative 2, divided by 3, close parentheses, caret 4. And I got this number. So notice that's a decimal. So then after I do that, I'm going to put enter, or you can do exe, it depends on your calculator. And then I'm going to change it from a fraction to a decimal. This is the stuff that we learned last lesson. We learned how to do it with your calculator. Fraction, decimal. So mine is, in order to get to mine is this FD right there. I'm going to do FD. So notice I put my answer right there. I didn't have to do anything else besides just push FD. And it's already there. And I got 16 over 81. So my answer is 16 over 81. Writing down what you put in your calculator is an important step because we want to know exactly where you may have made a mistake. If you made a mistake, that's the only downside to a calculator is sometimes students forget to write down what they did. So if we were to try these out on your own, I want you to try them out on your own also. Please pause the video and then come back to it. So 4 to the 4th is 256. Negative 2 to the 6th is 64. And then when there's a fraction, make sure you do the fraction, and then you might have to use the fraction decimal thing again, and it would be 1 over 125. Okay, next part, you'll have word problems. And so all you have to do with these is I like to just write down what I would put in my calculator, because I'm going to let my calculator do it. I would do 2, caret, 5, and then times by 7. Make sure that if you have a calculator that has one of these buttons that where, so it's the X with the box there, if you did this, 2, and then it would put a 5 up there, make sure to use the arrow over so that it's no longer in the exponent before you do times by 7. Because the answer for this is the 224 and not anything, not like the other way. If this was 5 times by 7, it's something like 8 billion or something like that. So try this one out. Again, write out what you're going to type into your calculator and then do it. Push pause on the video and then come back. So this is what I typed into my calculator, and I'm going to put calc so I can remember that I typed it in my calculator. And when you type it in your calculator, you should get 4,200 or 4,200. And last part of the lesson. We have, if A is 3 and B is 5, and here's our problem right here. We have to substitute in place of this A, we're going to put 3, and in place of B, we're going to put 5. So that's what they did. So A was right here and B was right there. Replace the 3 with the A and the 5 with the B. Then from this point, I would type it in my calculator. So this is how I would type it. 3 to the power of 2 plus 5 to the power of 4. And then you push calc, you push enter on your calculator, and you should get 634. The tricky things with these, and so let's go back to the little notes. So the only hard part with these is what to do when there are negatives. So I'm going to go back here. When it says if negative or fractions, always use parentheses. So so if these were negatives, if the A was a negative or the B was a negative, you would need to put an extra set of parentheses on this. In fact, I'm going to just change it just for the sake of showing you what I would do. If A instead, if I said if A was equal to negative 3 and B was equal to negative 5, then how I would put this in, instead of that one, instead of looking like this, is I would have to do 2 sets of parentheses. One for the ones that were already outside, like one for these that were already outside here, and then one set of parentheses to put the negative 3 in place of that A. So parentheses negative 3, close parentheses, minus parentheses negative 5, close parentheses, and then close it with another set of parentheses, caret 2. So that's what I put in my calc, and let me do it. So you see what I mean? So the parentheses are almost always on your calculator. So they should be anyway, if you have the right kind of calculator. So parentheses, parentheses, negative 3, close parentheses, minus parentheses, negative 5, close parentheses, close parentheses. So see how I made this look, oops, I forgot parentheses, no. See how I made this look exactly like what was up here? And then I need to do to the power of 2. Push enter, and you'll just get 4, cute in the middle. So that's the lesson. The homework for this lesson, so this goes back to here. The homework for this lesson, so this is your page. Please make sure to put your name here. And then the homework is numbers 1 through 16 and 28 through 32. That's your homework. Good luck.